There is no more infamous name in Tri-State history than Donald Ray Wallace. Even Wallace admitted that the murders he committed in January of 1980 were senseless.
Wallace said that he only wanted to get in and out of the empty home of Patrick and Teresa Gilligan and their two young children without hurting anybody. But the Gilligans walked in on him, and in a frenzied blur, he tied them up and shot them execution style.
What is going on, everybody out there? Lamont at large. I'm currently walking through the St. Joseph Cemetery here in Evansville, Indiana. And right now, I'm walking to the final resting place of the Gilligan family. We're briefly going to discuss the crime that ended 4 people's lives. Without further ado, right into the story we go. We're going to go back in time almost 45 years ago. It's January 14th, 1980. We're here in Evansville, Indiana. It's about 8 o'clock at night. And in Evansville, in a nice section, an old blue Plymouth, a car that doesn't belong in that neighborhood, a car that nobody, if they were outside their homes, were to witness and see, they would know for a fact that this car does not belong in this neighborhood, and nobody would recognize who was driving that vehicle. So the person behind the wheel driving that vehicle is one 22-year-old drug addicted thug loser. His name is Donald Ray Wallace. At this time in his life, he's looking for a way to cop some money so he can buy more drugs. He has already been arrested 14 times and he's currently on parole. He goes to the end of Aspen and he doesn't know this, but it's a dead end. He stops at the dead end and turns around into a family's driveway. The father of that house sees this creepy looking guy and he just looks dusty. He thinks to himself, maybe I should call the police because this guy just doesn't look like he belongs in this neighborhood. However, he just kind of brushes it off. Maybe he's overreacting. People all the time come down my dead end street. They didn't know it was a dead end and they turn around and they go. So Donald Ray Wallace, he is turning around, going down the street. His intentions in this neighborhood are to break into somebody's home because he needs to get money so he could buy more drugs. He sees one home that belongs to one Ralph Hendricks. He goes into this house and he's looking around. He finds some stuff, but it's not enough. It's not enough for this desperate loser. He leaves the house. He continues to walk down the street. And he would come to this house right here where the Gilligan family lived. Now at the time, Patrick Gilligan was a manager at a furniture store warehouse. And on that particular evening, that was his day off. So it was customary for the family to spend time together. Patrick, his wife Teresa, and their 2 children, 5-year-old Lisa and 4-year-old Greg. So the family goes out and the children had just got some Christmas money from their grandparents. So they're going to the store to each buy themselves a present. So as the Gilligan family is driving back to their home, they don't know, but that loser, Donald Ray Wallace, had broken into their home and is ransacking their house. He's looking for anything of value. And he has a couple things in his bag. As he's in the garage, he realizes that the family has come home. Several parts of the story is going to be part hearsay, part lies, part truth. You can read as many articles as you want about these kinds of stories, but at the end of the day, you have 4 people who were brutally murdered who were not able to testify in court. And you have one loser who basically couldn't come to terms with what he is about to do. So Patrick surprises Donald, and immediately Donald pulls out a gun, tells him, get his hands up, don't move. Is there anybody else in the house? I'm going to imagine that Patrick is telling him, man, take whatever you want, man, leave my family alone. He's not having it. So he forces Patrick to round up his family at gunpoint. Now, again, the part of the story where we truly will never know exactly how it took place. But over the course of but only a few minutes, at gunpoint, he forces Teresa to tie up Patrick. And then he ties her up. And then he would either tie up the children or he forced Teresa to tie up the children. People that commit heinous crimes, heinous murders, even the most minute of details, they will always change because they just can't come to grips with what they've done. The point is, with vacuum cleaner cord, everybody is now tied up. Now, Patrick, wanting to be a man, be the protector and provider of his family, starts fighting back. Wallace takes his gun and shoots him. Bang. Patrick falls to the floor. Teresa screams. The children are screaming and crying. And he's looking at Patrick, and Patrick is like gurgling. He's making this weird noise. So Wallace takes a dumbbell and he bashes him in the head, killing him. Immediately afterwards, he takes the gun, shoots and kills Teresa. And the children, well, they gotta go too. He shoots each of the children in the head. He gets his valuables. He makes his way out of the home. Now, he later would go to his friend's house, and he gets to his friend's house and he says, hey, where's Richard at? Now, when the door is opened, it's opened by a woman. Her name is Debbie Durham. And Wallace had borrowed their car. That was their blue Plymouth. So, hey, where's Richard at? Oh, I don't know. Okay, cool. Well, Debbie is cheating on her boyfriend with Wallace anyways. So that's cool. He ain't here. So they do whatever it is that they do. And Debbie says, hey, where'd you get all this stuff at? Oh, it's like, oh, I went into a house and I did this, I did that. So he tells her, hey, take some pictures of me. So he wants to take pictures of all the stolen stuff that he took, because he wants to send it to his friends that are in jail, just to be a braggart, just to say, hey, look at me, look at all the cool things that I got. Little does Debbie possibly know at that time is that as she's taking these pictures, that Wallace has some stains on his clothes. It's like a red, kind of a pink blobby stain. That would be a piece of brain matter from one of the people that he just brutally murdered. After the pictures are taken, Wallace starts to kind of freak out. He's realizing what he's just done. Whether he was high during the murders, I don't know. I don't care. And things are starting to hit him. He just murdered 4 people. Now, as he's hanging out with Debbie, he meets up with a couple of other friends, and he starts feeling really, really guilty. As he's feeling really guilty, going back to the neighborhood, the 4 family members, the 4 members are dead, and their neighbor who just got their house robbed, he comes home and he realizes that somebody broke into his house because there's broken glass in the back door. He calls the police. Evansville PD comes. They take a police report. So they start knocking on the house next door to see if anybody's seen anything. One of the cops that goes to the Gilligan's home notices that there's broken glass. He makes his way into the home and discovers only but a few hours later that all the members of the family are dead. So as they're doing that, they start canvassing the neighborhood, asking people if they've seen anything, anybody suspicious. The guy that lived at the dead end that I told you about, that seen that creepy blue car, he says, yeah, I seen a car earlier in the evening. It looked really creepy. It looked out of place. I've never seen that car in this neighborhood before. They ask him to describe the driver. He describes the car. He describes the driver. One of the detectives knows that blue car. He knows that car because he's investigated the owner of the vehicle, Richard Milligan, and his dumb, stupid, drug-addicted girlfriend, Debbie Durham. He knows that that's their car, and they're known for casing neighborhoods and breaking into homes. So as this story hits all over Evansville, Wallace is very, very nervous. As a matter of fact, he basically confesses the crime to a friend of his. He said things just kind of went out of whack. It was a brief moment of utter madness. Whatever he's saying, he said, I killed the family. Now, his friends, I don't know what they tell him, but they probably want him to get the hell away from them because they're already into drugs and robbing and crime. They don't need this guy bringing them down any further. So this guy, Wallace, the next night, January 15th, would end up hiding in the attic of some random home in the neighborhood. As he's breaking into that window to hide in this house, a neighbor sees this dude that he's never seen before breaking into an elderly woman's house. He calls the cops come. Now, the entire city, by this time now, they've already grabbed a hold of Richard Milligan. He's in jail, so he couldn't possibly have been the killer. And Debbie is pointing the finger to one Donald Ray Wallace. So the police, they get the call that somebody broke into this lady's home, and they say, hey, do you mind if we search your house? And she says, no, not at all, go ahead. They go, they check out the entire house. The house has an attic. They open the door to the attic where the ladder or the stairs come down from the ceiling, and they yell out, who's ever in this attic, just make it be known now. Silence. Nobody's saying anything. They say it again. Silence. One of the detectives racks his shotgun and he says, who's ever in here, we're going to assume you're armed. So if you don't say anything now, we're coming in. And as soon as he said that, as soon as that sound of that shotgun racking, they say, oh yeah, hey, hang on. He comes downstairs. And at gunpoint, they tell him to put his hands behind his back. Donald Ray Wallace, he's saying, am I under arrest? And they answer him, yeah, you're under arrest. You have a warrant for 4 counts of murder. By this time now, they got quite a bit of evidence. They got pictures of stolen stuff that belongs to the Gilligans. They have blood on a jacket that Wallace tried to set on fire in the backyard of Debbie's house. They got quite a bit of evidence. Oh, and the clothes he's still wearing, they have blood from the Gilligans on them. So he's booked into county jail. He's charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. He feigns mental illness. This guy, he's like, oh, I'm mentally ill. I'm mentally ill. For the first 2 years, Donald Ray Wallace is locked up in a mental facility. He's faking schizophrenia. As he's in this facility, he's writing letters to Debbie. And these letters, bored, you're in this mental hospital, you're locked away. So they're writing each other about all the great sex they had, all the great drugs they've done. And he said, these people are really, really stupid. My dad's going to get me a lawyer that's really good at beating these kinds of cases. And, I'm telling them that I'm schizophrenic. That way, if I got to do any time, it'll be at a cool hospital. He's also bragging that he's a pretty smart guy, and he is. He's a killer, but he's a pretty smart guy. As a matter of fact, he's bragging that his IQ is 130. That's pretty high. That's pretty high. It's too bad that he couldn't use that intelligence for good. Instead of being a drug-addicted scumbag loser and killing a total innocent family of 4 simply because he wanted more drugs to do. Due to the criminal career that Donald Ray Wallace has led, from being a teenager up to being a 24-year-old scumbag, the prosecutor in the case is seeking the death penalty. And because of the publicity in the case, the trial had to be moved about 100 miles north of here to Terre Haute, Indiana. It did not take a jury long to find this scumbag guilty of the quadruple murders. So he's sentenced to die in the death chamber here in Indiana. And it took, from that time, from the sentencing, it took about 23 years or so. It took about 23 years or so, but on March 10th, 2005, Donald Ray Wallace walked himself to the execution chamber, and he was executed via lethal injection for murdering this family right here. This is the Gilligan family grave. Wallace did not have to murder this family. He could have took whatever he wanted and let them live. I want to read a quote that this scumbag said, because he denied that he had anything to do with these murders. He tried to blame an accomplice and that he was simply outside in the car. He was just a getaway driver, even though he had their blood and brain matter on his clothes. But only a few weeks before his execution, he finally admitted to the crime, even though he admitted it not outright, but throughout the years in letters and talking to inmates, stuff like that. So somebody had asked him, well, why'd you shoot these people? Like, what were you thinking? And mind you guys, this guy's a drug-addicted loser, liar, scumbag. So we won't really, truly know the honest-to-God truth, because this guy's just a pervasive liar. Quote, when they asked him why he shot the family, he said, quote, I shot him because he gave me a hard time. I shot her because she started screaming and I needed her to stop. And I shot the kids because I could not let them grow up without parents. Donald Ray Wallace called this act a brief lapse in judgment that was fueled by a drug-addicted brain, and he let that take over. But I don't buy that for an excuse. I don't care how many different drugs or how much alcohol you're drinking. You know what you're doing, because there's plenty of drug addicts that are hopelessly addicted to drugs and they don't kill anybody. Oftentimes, the only person that they're hurting are themselves, and oftentimes their family members and people that love them. This is Evansville's worst crime ever, in my opinion. And crime does happen in Evansville, but this is the worst. How do you shoot a 5-year-old little girl and a 4-year-old little boy? How do you do that? Rest in peace to the Gilligan family. On the day of his execution, March 10th, 2005, Donald Ray Wallace, as he's waiting, eating his last meal, there's a couple protesters outside.
7, 8. Tonight, the killer is the state.
We want to say, I'm against killing.
Please, all of you, keep his family, his friends, and of course the victims' families in your prayers.
And it doesn't accomplish anything, and it cuts him off from being a person that could realize the problems he created.
Because it's cruel and unusual punishment. My wife says it's barbaric.
It's not right to kill people.
We don't think that Indiana should be killing people like this.
What you look at with Don Wallace, and I'm not trying to take away the tragic event that happened because, I mean, obviously it's a sad event. This whole thing is sad. But is killing Don Wallace, is that going to make any of us safer? I mean, does that do anything at all to our society? Are we all going to feel better tonight?
And they have a conversation with some other people who are there as well, but they were proponents of the death penalty, as I am. And one of the people, they approached the pro-death penalty side and they say, what good is it going to do by executing this man? It's not going to protect the public from him. He's already in prison for the rest of his life and he can never get out. Now, I'm not really clear as to what the man said, but I can say this. What's done is done. When somebody is murdered, especially in this brutal way, when you execute somebody, you're sending notice to everybody out there in society, depending on the state you live in, that this can and will happen to you if you commit these kinds of egregious crimes. And because we have the death penalty, we don't know the exact number of people who were not murdered, who did not die because somebody wanting to take their lives, thought, but only for a second, about cases such as this, where I'm in a state that has the death penalty. Maybe it could happen to me. Maybe I better not do this. Who knows how many lives the death penalty has saved. Live but not live, still alive by the grace of God. Lamont at large. I am hitting the road. We're going up north to Ohio. I got a lot of video up there to do. And I hope that you join me on my journey. And again, not every video that I upload is your cup of tea. You don't have to subscribe. All I say is stick around, check in with me from time to time. I might upload something that you might like. Catch up with you in the next video. Peace out.